So here it is in a nutshell. For those of you on the podcast, a lot of this went down after the podcast, therefore you didn't hear it, but you did hear it on the radio show. A little background. I have a nationally syndicated radio program. I don't work for, but I partner with Cumulus. They own a lot of the stations. They are what we would call a radio syndicator. They put out my 3-hour radio show. It airs live from 12 p.m. Eastern time to 3 p.m. Eastern time. A lot of you already know this. Forgive me for relitigating it, but we have a lot of new listeners today interested in this story. So I partner with Cumulus. Well, Cumulus, for some reason, thought it was a good idea a little while ago to institute a vaccine mandate for the company. Well, I had some ongoing communications with them. I strongly objected to this. And once people started getting let go and moved around, I felt like it was my responsibility at Cumulus to stand against it. You know, folks, talking is one thing we got to do. I can't just go on my show and tell you guys to do stuff and then just be a talker myself. I've never been that way. I left my last job to go run for office because I believed in it. Didn't work out. But, you know, action matters. Talk is cheap. There's a lot of talkers. There's a lot of bull hitters, if you know what I mean. I'm not into that. You know, I got 46 going on 47 years on the planet. I learned a lot of things. You know, the most valuable quote I ever heard, right? The natural. I've said it a couple times. We all live 2 lives, the one we learn from and the one we live after that. The real path to happiness is through suffering. Sometimes we got to suffer a little bit. Well, I'm in that second life right now. I learned a lot of my mistakes in the first one. I learned thousands of ways not to do things. I learned what wasn't for me, politics. I learned what was for me, activism and action. But talk needs to motivate action. So I went on the air on Cumulus's radio stations yesterday, and I let them know that I am objecting to their vaccine mandate, and I gave them an ultimatum, and the ultimatum to Cumulus, which would not be penalty-free to me, which is fine. That's part of the deal, is that they can have me or they can have the vaccine mandate, but they can't have both. I didn't expect the story to go viral. It did. I certainly wasn't doing it for any kind of a public relations thing. I don't need any of that, obviously, at this point. Not interested in any of that. You know, and it's kind of hilarious to watch liberals and fake discredited slobs on the Republican side, the grifter class, stunned. So what did they do yesterday? Of course, the left, in an effort to discredit what I'm doing, and the anti-Trump grifter crowd, because that's what they do. They're grifters. Because they have no principles, what they want to do, the left and the grifters, is the left have to take down people who stand on principle. You understand why they're doing that, right? Because they want you to believe that you don't really have to stand on principles. You should just pay them first. It's all a grift. That's really the grifter side. The left side, the left has never had a principle ever. So they remind me of that kid. I grew up with this kid once who, you know, sometimes I would go home and they'd be like, why are you going home? I said, because my mom said I had to be home for dinner. And they'd be like, yeah, but what? You could just lie to her and say we got lost on the way home. Like, they were so stunned I went home because my mother told me to be home for dinner, because they never listened to them, that they were shocked. They didn't understand it. That's why the left is so puzzled by my decision to potentially leave a nationally syndicated radio show I love doing on principle, because the left doesn't have any principles. They never did. These are zeros. These are life losers. They don't stand for anything. They hate this country. They hate you. And they object to the fact that anyone standing on principle like myself and many others, I'm not in this alone. Southwest employees, I got video of that coming up. A bunch of police officers who have a lot to lose. They object to that because their lives are meaningless voids of emptiness. They don't stand for anything. These are losers. These are life losers. Their lives mean nothing, and they want your life to mean nothing too. And when your life means something and you stand on principle, they are so deeply disturbed because they got to wake up and look themselves in the mirror and say, that's not me. So the conspiracy theorists left and the grotesque grifter right, of course, came out with a couple of myths. Myth number 1, that I'm only attempting to stand for the employees being let go in the vaccine mandate at Cumulus and forfeit my show because the ratings are bad. That's hilarious. Listen, I don't talk about ratings specifically on the radio for a number of reasons. They're not something cryptic or secret. It's just I have a lot of friends in the business, and it's gauche to do that. But I assure you, if it was a ratings issue and we weren't blowing up the airwaves like we are, don't you think someone would have leaked that by now? Of course, if you're the left, you're just too stupid to figure that out. And again, because you have no principles, you're always looking for an ulterior motive because that's your entire life, looking for the easy way out because you're losers. You're life losers. You've lost it everything. You don't stand for anything and you never will. You have no dignity, no courage, no spine, and you want to justify your dignityless, no courage, no spine existence. You want to justify it by proving everybody else lives a soulless life like you do. Ratings issue is hilarious. We have the opposite problem. The ratings have been amazing. That's why it's not easy to potentially walk away from this. Second, is it some kind of a contract thing? Folks, again, you don't think that would have leaked by now? Oh, man, his contract is up. Really? The show is only, what is it, 5-6 months old? I don't even know. We're at 21 weeks of shows. Yes, I signed a 22-week radio contract.
Unusual, very unusual.
Yeah, very. Joe's been in the radio business 30 years. Very unusual, he says. 22 weeks, 22 and a half. Show ends next Wednesday. Again, you're a leftist. I get it. You know, you live a vacuum of a life. You have no dignity or courage, so you want everyone else not to have any courage too. I understand what you're doing. The other one is that, oh, he's just doing it for himself. I'm vaccinated, you idiots on the left. I have lymphoma. I have cancer. I got the vaccine early because I was high risk. My decision has no impact on my stance. I am not even subject to the mandate because I'm already vaccinated. I'm doing it for other people who don't have the oomph, the leverage, or the ability, and weren't in the high-risk category I am. I know leftists don't understand any of that. I'm not anti-anything. I'm anti-mandates, and I'm anti-people being fired for not having sovereignty over their own bodies. I know leftists, it's hard for you to understand. And I know obese, skin-filled bags of onion rings and lard like Jonah Goldberg from the Dispatch, a grotesque human being who really needs to comb his hair and wear deodorant once in a while. And as I said, this skin-filled, rotting bag of onion rings, this obesity, Jonah Goldberg, he thought it was funny that I stood on principle. And it's not surprising because when you're Jonah Goldberg, a laughingstock, a joke of a human being amongst that small class of human beings who know you, and you're a career grifter, of course you'd find it funny. Of course you'd find the whole thing funny because you've never stood on a principle for your entire life. You're a humiliation to anyone who knows you, anyone who's been around you. And when I see you in the green room in Fox, you'll typically lower your head in shame because you're a coward and a chump. And you work with that other chump loser, Kevin Williamson. Again, you guys are just you're nothing but leftist hacks posing as conservatives because the grift is good for you. That's all you are. You and Stephen Hayes and that class of losers. That's all you are. Losers. Folks, it's about body sovereignty. It's always been about bodily sovereignty to me. It's not about a vaccination. This is a liberal move. Liberals know if they can take control of your body and what you're allowed to put in it and what you're not, and they can mass fire people, that their move towards tyranny is complete.